everyone. My name is Althea, and this is the Puppet Master Files. And today I was going to try to summarize and talk about court and money control with the Puppet Master. My first mistake being married to a covert narcissist was not being independent, not in letting him be in complete control during their marriage. But I, I grew up Christian, and you're supposed to marry one person, stay married to them for the rest of your life, and be completely dependent on him. And they also teach in the religion that the man is the head of the house, um, and which at the end of my divorce, he would follow me around the house and say that he was the head of the house and that I needed to submit to him. For the first couple of years before I started having kids, we just had our routine where I was always home with him, and he kind of like gave me grief if that routine was broken. We immediately had like a joint account. He controlled all the accounts. He controlled the phones. He was the account manager of the phones, which I didn't know as an account manager that you could look at. You can spy on the other person or see who they're calling or texting or whatever. He was the account manager of our bank accounts as well. He controlled all the cars. All the cars were under his name. He handled all the manly tasks of oil changes and maintenance of the car insurance. So when we started having a bunch of kids, and we were married, I was buried in kids forever. And then, well, basically, so I was buried with kids, so he was safe. The whole marriage didn't have to worry about me leaving him or finding out that he's a narcissist. When the kids started to get a little older, I have 5 kids, just in case any of you don't know. So I'm trying to just focus on court stuff so that there's so many like different forms of manipulation and control, um, from a covert narcissist, that it's very overwhelming because I'm trying to just stay to one topic, because when I start talking about one thing, I'm realizing, oh, like I could easily go on a tangent about this because he also does that during how he's manipulating this, and it's very confusing. But to repeat, I should have been more independent. I should have known about having my own money. I should have like, and when I realized that I was going to separate from him, I should have started secretly saving, and had my own bank account and secretly started saving money, putting little money here aside here and there so that I wouldn't be screwed. And I didn't do that. I was just so desperate to get out of the marriage. So, like really fucked me when I was like, okay, I want a divorce. And at that point, like even before that, he had already hidden all the money. And when I would try to go work, I couldn't really because he tried to sabotage that. And then, I was still the main caregiver of the kids, so I couldn't really go work. So I should have saved money for a little while, maybe take cash out when I go grocery shopping, $5, $10 here and there, and had like a little chunk of money before I left. And then the credit card was the one thing that saved me. And since I didn't have anything in my name, my credit wasn't bad yet, so I was able to get like a $20,000 credit card. Be aware of how your whole judgment is being set up, and have a good lawyer. And just be willing to it to not be fair, because it's not going to be fair with a narcissist. You kind of have to like just be knowledgeable and know that you're going to get fucked a little, but not like my lawyer made sure that it, like, I was less screwed than if I, because like I know people that they spent so much time in court and trying to make things fair with a narcissist, and they will fight you to the death, and the person I know ended up getting screwed and losing a lot, even though she's the one who's innocent, and she sacrificed her whole life, took care of the kids, and did everything. But and he was just a covert narcissist piece of shit. But another thing to be knowledgeable about with court, with a narcissist, is when you have a bunch of children, the children are money. The more custody you have, the more, like for me, an example, each child is a certain amount of money that he has to pay in child support. The first thing he did was try to avoid court, or try to avoid lawyers, and try to get me to just work it out with him. But I knew that I couldn't work anything out with him. He immediately sent me this long sob story email about how he cares so much about the kids, and he's so sad. Actually, the first thing he did was act like this sad, he acted like this pathetic. It was so weird because when we first got separated, I was so confused because I was the primary parent. He wasn't a present dad. He didn't like hang out with the kids. He didn't do anything extra. Didn't act like this awesome dad. Like our whole marriage, it was like I did everything with everything. He, like, and in the home, I took care of all the kids' needs, every single one of them. He came home from work and he would pop open a beer, and he, would take a nap, and then he wouldn't even eat dinner with us, or because he wanted to drink like 6 beers before he ate his dinner. So he would wait for me to be done putting the kids to bed. He didn't help put the kids to bed. He might, like, if I complained about him not helping, he might yell and scream at the kids to brush their teeth. But that was his duty as a father, was telling the kids to brush their teeth. And then when the kids went to bed, because I was so overwhelmed of never having me time, and he never really helped with the kids, or even like I even would love it if he'd just hang out with the kids. But he was always completely exhausted because he didn't sleep, and he worked really hard at work. A plus for that. He was a good provider because he was good at his job. But me as the primary caretaker of the kids, and him not even really hanging out with them or helping at all, I thought it was very weird when the beginning of our separation, when he immediately started having the kids circle around him and acted all sad. And I remember him telling the kids, the government's going to take me away from you. I'm not, when we get divorced, I'm not going to see you anymore. And I remember my kids running up to me and crying and saying that what he told them. And I was like, what the hell is he telling them that for? In my mind, I didn't even think about custody yet. But the reason why he was telling the kids that, because he was trying to set it up for himself to get as much custody as he could, because kids are money in his eyes. The more he has to pay me child support, the more custody he gets. So he immediately fought for 50% custody, and I had no idea about that. In my mind, I was like, I should at least get 75% custody because I'm the primary caretaker of them, and you never really were present with that. And that was like my whole life, was being their mom. So, and I thought that's how I thought it was supposed to be. So it was very weird that he immediately wanted to have 50% custody. So that's one thing you should know, is custody. However much custody they have is has to do with how much they're going to have to pay you. 50% is what he wanted, and he ended up getting. And we even went to the mediation, or the meetings where they interview you to determine how much custody you're going to get. And I remember him coming with a clipboard, acting like he really gave a shit about being a 50% dad. And he ended up getting it. But I knew that eventually I realized that it was about money. And I knew that I would have to do all the work, even though he was 50%. And for the first couple of years, I ended up doing like all the work. I like all the details of being a parent, because I knew he wouldn't do it. So, and he knew that I would do it because he knew how I was. Because I would worry about the kids when they're over at his house 50% of the time. Like, I'm sure he's got the emails. Well, he's supposed to, but it's not my responsibility to make sure he does. But he wouldn't do the little things for school, like, oh, they're supposed to bring this to school this day, or the emails from all their teachers, and just everything, all the needs of the kids. I knew he wouldn't do it, and he didn't. So I ended up doing all those extra details, even though I was only like had been 50% of the time. But anyways, so that was another indication that 50% to him did not mean that he was going to be a 50% parent. It meant that he was going to be 50% custody, but I was going to be the 100% present parent, emotional support, took care of all the details, because he just wanted to fucking pay me less. And it did happen. I knew that if I let him be responsible for those things, my kids would end up getting not taken care of for certain things that like bothered me. I didn't want the kids to suffer. So, okay, another thing with the court is that you should know is the whole system was set up for him to just pay directly to our joint account when child support payments were supposed to be made. And we had 50% custody. So the first, like, he was in control. He had the whole system set up in our judgment that he would be in control. So I had to rely on him paying the money when he was supposed to. During the first few years of divorce, he would be late like a couple days, like all the time. He was always late. And I made the mistake of sending him messages and being like, why haven't you put money in the account yet? Like, I really need it. I really need to pay bills or whatever. And you're not supposed to beg or say things like that to a narcissist, because it gives them more power, which is really sick and twisted. But so there was that. And then 1 month he didn't pay. He only paid me half of the month. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And I asked him, like, why did you only pay me for half? Like, why'd you pay me this amount? It seemed like it was more, because he just did for the beginning of the month, what he was going to pay me for the whole month. And he knew that I wasn't knowledgeable about, like, I would have to go to court or whatever. And I thought at the time that the only way I could like get justice is if I took him to court, and then you'd have to pay. And I was like, well, I'd have to have a lawyer to do that, and I don't know how, like, I can't do that. And I remember when he only paid me half. Well, he told me this sob story about how he was switching jobs and he just couldn't afford it. But at this same exact time, I had taken on a second job, um, that really helped me because I was always like suffering financially. Even with child support, I was suffering financially. And he knew these things about me. He knew what was going on. He always knew what was going on. He always wanted to stay in the mix of everything so he could manipulate the situation. So he knew I was financially struggling. And then I got this second job. So I had two jobs, but I also didn't get to see the kids that much because I had these two jobs. And I was like, well, at least I'm not like freaking suffering financially and or whatever. And so at this same time, he, I suspect that he didn't like that I had extra money. So he took this opportunity to come up with his own sob story about how he could only pay me for half the month. And 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 then he even offered to like watch the kids more because I was working so much. And oh, that's so nice of you. That's so nice of you to offer to help me out. But then I realized later, I'm like, he's just doing that because to look nice and to not recognize the fact that I actually don't want to have to work two jobs and not see my kids. I'd rather work a normal amount of time and still be able to see my kids. And I think I even told him that. I'm like, no, I'd actually just like to be able to see my kids more. Um, and not have to be like going paycheck to paycheck and be like, and then having like other financial problems like car problems and money problems. And he knew all this. And then he created this sob story about how he didn't have enough money to pay me because he was in between jobs, which the new job that he tried to get, I helped him get it because I had to do an interview for them and tell them that he was a good, hardworking man, even though he was an evil narcissist. So, anyways, so then at the time I was like, well, like I just basically shut down and I didn't do anything about it because I thought I had to go to court and go through a long process that I didn't have the time and the energy to handle. And so so months went by, and then somehow, like, because like my friends and stuff would tell me like they didn't really know that much either about court, but they're like, well, what about like family court services? They can help you for free. And I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. What is family court services? So one day I was like going through my phone, and this was months after he had only paid me half of the month. And I found a text from a family court service person. So basically, what family court service people are is you can go to court and you can have them help you, and they will talk you through the issue and give you all the right papers to file and help you for free. So I happened to find this number in my phone that somebody texted me before. I don't even know. I think it was really literally just my angels sending me to that, because I ended up calling them and discovered that I could get help for free. You don't have to have a lawyer. So I went to court. The one thing about it too, though, is you end up waiting for hours and in court to wait for them to help you. But I ended up taking him to court, and I was terrified. I was terrified because he came to court, looking all calm and professional, and he was the master manipulator. So I thought he would somehow convince the judge that he didn't have to pay me for half of the month. And this was like months later. um, that I finally took him to court for only paying me half. Um, and he even wrote in he I don't know what it's called, but he wrote in the um to the judge that I was trying to disrupt his new job, and he basically just bashed me and said that I was the reason why he couldn't, like, in between jobs or whatever. And so I thought, oh, she's just going to let him, get away with that, and I'm not going to have justice or whatever. So I went to court shaking like a leaf, and the judge basically just said, "Does he owe you that money?" And I had all the bank statements, which was extremely overwhelming for me to collect evidence because I already shut down when I have to deal with him anyways. But I had all the bank statements that he paid late, and then the month that he didn't pay the full amount. And all the judge said was, "Do did does he owe you money for this month?" And I said, "Yes." And I thought she was going to make me prove it. And then she asked him, "Do you owe for this month?" And he said, "Yes," because he can't deny it. Like I had the banks. I'm sure he knew that there's proof that he didn't. And he said, "Yes." And she's like, "All right, well, immediately remove the hold on your judgment," because he also had set up the court system in the very beginning with his lawyer that I could never garnish his wages. He put a hold on it because he was an independent back then. And so that was another way that he was able to be in control of the money, is because he was an independent. I couldn't garnish his wages. So the judge immediately took off that hold and told him he owed me money with interest from all those months that had collected that he didn't pay. So after that, I realized that if there was any other issues, I could just go to family court services and they would help me for free and I could take him to court. So a few more times, like, I thought I had to deal with that. But another thing that I did not realize that I should have done is you can also go through child support services and they completely help you for free. You file everything to them and they are the middleman. They get the payments from the employer, and you don't have to deal with the puppet master at all. I didn't know about this until recently. But so, like, after I took him to court with the family court services, they helped me. Then he ended up having to pay me back the money he didn't pay me. He behaved for the most part since then because I I had realized that I could get help and I won in court. But he was still always like late for like payments and stuff. And I had recently discovered when I moved into my new apartments, when they asked me about child support service, or they asked me about child support, and like, because I had to verify my income, they're like, you can go through child support services and they monitor. We need proof of that because they monitor all his payments. And I was like, you can do that? That is what I wish I would have known had done in the very beginning, because he would have no control of the payments. It all goes through them. So once I finally went through that process, I don't have to beg him to pay child support on time or anything like that. If you are divorcing a narcissist, make sure you go through child support services, register through them, file through them, give them your court information, all that stuff, and they will handle your child support payments. Because for years of my divorce, I didn't know about that. And he was in control of the money, and in so many ways, he like messed with me and my life with that. In another episode, I will talk about how he manipulated situations with that. He was even able to manipulate situations with being in control of paying child support or whatever. He would, because he was always trying to get more custody, which he has now gotten. And I'm going to explain in another episode. Like, I can't live off of my income alone. So that's why there's child support. I don't have this magical career yet. So, and I will also talk about that in another episode about how he convinced my daughter that I'm this irresponsible mom who should have a career by now, and I should be working at some 9 to 5 job, which also affects the child support numbers. Because I recently went to court about that too, because he finally got that daughter to live with him full time, and child support went down like almost, well, like around $1,000 because of my two older daughters. Basically, the main thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody is knowledgeable about is in court is to be independent enough so you can, and be aware of the court processes and stuff, and make sure you sign up for family court services when you finalize your child support and everything, because then you don't have to deal with the narcissists at all. So anyways, I hope this helped someone out there, even if it's just one person. I really hope it helps you guys, because these things are very important and I wish I would have known them. So anyways, take care. Thank you for listening.